I remember the moment I first saw them, the moment I first stumbled upon something I could not believe. I stood there, completely stunned, unsure if I was seeing something real or something out of a nightmare. Because what I was looking at was not supposed to be there. This was supposed to be my land, the land I inherited from my grandfather, the land I hoped I could keep for future generations. But instead, I was staring at something I could not explain. I was looking at not just a few houses, but a community, an entire neighborhood that had been constructed without my knowledge, without my consent, without a single piece of permission. All of it on my land, all of it stolen, all of it a violation of justice, all of it a violation of the promises made by the past, all of it a violation of the future I hoped for my children. I stood there thinking, who could do this? How could this happen? How could someone come in and just take what belongs to me, what belongs to my family, without a second thought, without fairness, without a chance for me to say a word in protest, or to make a deal or a compromise? I felt a rush of emotions, disbelief, shock, fear, rage, and a deep feeling of unfairness. I remember my knees growing weak, my hands starting to tremble, and my heart beginning to race. This was not a small theft. This was a massive takeover. This was something I could not ignore. This was something I could not let them get away with. Because this was not just about me. This was about justice. This was about fairness. This was about honoring the promises made by our ancestors. This was about securing the future for generations to come. And then I saw her. The person who was responsible for all of this. The person who turned my peace into chaos. The person who stole my happiness, my financial stability, and my ability to feel safe in my own community. I saw Karen with a smug expression on her face, an expression filled with confidence, an expression that said, I own this place now, and there is nothing you can do about it. You are trespassing on community property. That moment made something break inside me. This was not community property. This was mine. This belonged to me and my family. This belonged to the people who had made a life here long before Karen decided it was convenient to grab it. This was something worth protecting, something worth preserving. I knew from that moment forward I was not going to back down. I was not going to let someone erase my future just for their own profits. I made a vow to myself, a vow that I would do whatever it was within my power to bring justice. I would make sure that the fraud and theft were exposed. I would make sure that the people who fell victim to this scam would be made whole. I would make sure that the person responsible for this, the person I was looking at, smiling in her smug confidence, would pay the price for what she had done. I remember thinking, as I turned away and walked back toward my car, that I was entering a battle I was not sure I was prepared for, a battle I could lose, or a battle I could win, but a battle I was not going to avoid. Because when something you care about is stolen, you do not wait. You do not ask nicely for it back. You do whatever you must in order to reclaim it. And that is exactly what I decided to do. This is the story of the revenge I decided to take, and how justice was finally served. At 45, I thought I had already seen everything a person could see in their life. I thought I knew the worst that people could do to one another. I thought I was prepared for whatever might come my way, the struggles, the disappointments, the financial hardships, but I was completely unprepared for what I was about to uncover. Because this was not just a small scam. This was not something that involved a few dollars or a few forged documents. This was a conspiracy that stole not just money, but the future, the peace, and the happiness of 30 families. All by the careful, deliberate crimes of a woman who called herself the Queen of Sunset Hills. I remember the moment I first stumbled upon the truth. I remember how it felt, the disbelief turning into disbelief, then disbelief turning into shock, then shock turning into pure rage. Because what Karen Morrison did was not just theft, it was a violation of justice. It was a violation of the very principles upon which our community stands. I was at my father's funeral when I first noticed something was strange. The people in the community were whispering. Some avoided looking me in the eye. Some turned their backs on me. All I wanted was a moment of peace. All I wanted was a chance to say goodbye to my dad, the man who raised me, the man who taught me the meaning of fairness and honesty. But instead, I was forced to deal with something I couldn't ignore. Picture this. I'm at the graveside service for my dad. The clouds are heavy. The rain drops beginning to fall. The preacher's words are meant to bring peace, peace for the departed, peace for the family. But I felt a growing unease, because something was very, very wrong. The people I trusted were not acting normally. The neighbors kept their distance. Some avoided me, turning their heads when I tried to make eye contact. I decided then and there that something was afoot, something I needed to uncover. The following days opened up a world I wish I had never stumbled upon, a world of forged documents, fake brochures, and a conspiracy forged by a woman I barely knew. Karen Morrison, the self-appointed Queen of Sunset Hills, the person who decided that the land I owned, the land I hoped to pass down to my children, was a commodity for her own financial gain. I remember opening the folder I found in my dad's study, a folder filled with documents, letters, financial statements, a trail that seemed impossible to follow. I turned the pages carefully, and I started to piece together the story, the forged signatures, the fake titles, the forged ownership certificates, the transactions that seemed to appear out of thin air, all of them a careful fabrication designed to enable Karen to sell something that was not hers to sell. All this while collecting payments from innocent families, payments that were supposed to be for their new homes, payments that were meant to enable their future, but instead fell directly into Karen's pocket. Picture, for a moment, a group of families who used their hard-earned money, their life savings, to buy their own piece of the American dream, a small patch of land where they could raise their children, grow a community, and call their own. Instead, what happened was a nightmare, because none of it was real. All of it was a sophisticated scam, all forged by Karen, all supported by a team of individuals who turned a blind eye in exchange for a cut of the profits. I remember spreading the documents out on my kitchen table, turning page after page, adding up the amounts. The total theft exceeded $3 million, a sum that represented the futures, the education, the financial stability, and the happiness of 30 families, all stolen by forged documents, all stolen by a woman who saw opportunity in chaos. Karen forged signatures, mine, the city's, the bank's, until it seemed to the outside world that everything was perfectly in order. She drew up phony brochures with beautiful photos of the houses that were supposed to be constructed. She used forged titles to transfer ownership. She manipulated the legal process in a way that made everything appear completely above board. And for years, no one suspected a thing, because when you follow the paper trail, everything looks fine, until you realize that the paper trail itself is a fabrication. When I first tried to bring this to the authorities' attention, many dismissed me. Some said I was confused. Some said I was trying to destroy the community. Some said I was simply a man who was angry about a business deal gone bad. But I knew the truth. I knew that something much bigger was at play. I knew I was up against a sophisticated conspiracy, a conspiracy that was not afraid to destroy a man's life in order to fill its own coffers. The most frustrating thing was that I couldn't do much about it at first, because the forged documents made everything look legal, because the community was turning against me, because Karen had successfully manipulated the people I cared about, turning them into soldiers for her own financial army. All the while, I was battling not just for justice, but for my own credibility, for the ability to be believed, for the chance to clear my name, and for the opportunity to bring down a conspiracy that was much bigger than I initially knew. The conspiracy that was much bigger than I initially knew. I remember sitting in my car, staring up at the houses that should not be there, houses that were built without permits, without a lawful transfer of ownership, houses that represented the stolen futures of 30 families. Each home was a symbol of a dream that had been crushed by a carefully orchestrated fraud. Each brick was a lie, each fence was a manifestation of theft, and at the center of it all was Karen Morrison, the woman who made this possible. I decided I could not wait for someone else to solve this. I decided I had to become the person who investigated, who turned over every stone, who connected every piece of the puzzle. Because I knew the people who had been deceived, the 30 families, deserved justice. Because I knew I might lose everything if I let Karen win. So I started interviewing everyone I could, homeowners, city officials, bank employees, and even Karen's former business partners. The stories I heard made my stomach knot. The more I investigated, the more I discovered a vast conspiracy. This was not a simple scam by a single person. This was a well-planned enterprise. Karen had accomplices, a team that forged documents, opened bank accounts, and manipulated the legal process to make their theft appear spotless. This team included notaries, lawyers, mortgage brokers, and even a few people within City Hall who turned a blind eye in exchange for bribes. I remember meeting a young couple, a couple who had used their life savings to put a down payment on their first home, a home that was supposed to be theirs, a place where their children could grow up safely and flourish. Instead, that couple fell victim to Karen's scam. They lost their deposit, their future, their peace of mind. The wife cried quietly while I interviewed them, wondering aloud if their children would ever be able to have a stable home again. That moment made me realize I was not just battling for myself, I was battling for them, for their futures. As I turned up more and more information, I began to piece together the timeline of the crimes, the forgeries, the payments, the fake closing documents. Everything fell into place. I saw a clear picture of a conspiracy that stretched back nearly 8 years. All the while, Karen grew rich. All the while, families fell into financial chaos. All the while, the community fell victim to something much greater than simple theft, a systematic violation of their rights, their financial stability, and their ability to trust. I remember when I stumbled upon a key piece of evidence, a forged deed that used my own name as the transferor. This forged document made it look as if I had voluntarily handed over my land to Karen's companies. This forged paper was a crucial piece of her conspiracy. Without it, none of her subsequent sales could be finalized. This forged deed was a turning point in the case, because now I had something I could show a court. Now I had something I could bring to the authorities. Now I had proof, hard proof, that a crime had been committed. This forged deed, along with the testimony from the victims, the financial records, and the forged signatures, slowly but surely began to illuminate the true scale of Karen's crimes. The total amount stolen was not a few $1,000s, it was in the range of $3 million. The number of victims was not a small group, it was 30 families. The conspiracy was not a simple fraud, it was a sophisticated enterprise designed to destroy financial stability and undermine the foundation of a community. The more I investigated, the more I became a target. I received threatening phone calls in the middle of the night. Some messages said I should back down or face serious consequences. Some tried to intimidate me by following me in black cars. Some tried to break into my home, but none of that made me stop, because I knew I was on the side of justice, because I knew I was the only person who could bring this conspiracy to light. Meanwhile, Karen continued to sell properties, collect payments, and destroy the financial futures of innocent families. All while acting as a respected community leader, a kind, generous person who made large donations to local schools, supported community events, and kept up a spotless image in the media. This made it even more difficult for me to convince people that there was something sinister at play, because when someone is well liked, when someone is a fixture in the community, many people do not want to believe the worst about them, but I knew the worst was true, and I was determined to prove it. There are moments in a person's life when everything starts turning against them, when friends become enemies, when a community you care about starts looking at you with suspicion, and when the truth feels distant and elusive. This was that moment for me. This was when Karen turned the community against me in a way I hadn't thought was possible. This was when I truly began to realize just how much danger I was in. Not just financial danger, but danger to my reputation, my safety, and even to the future I hoped to provide for my family. Day 1, group text alert. David's phone pings. The first text message comes through, then another, then another. His phone glows quietly in a dimly lit room. He picks it up and starts reading. His grip tightens, his knuckles whiten. His pulse starts to race as the messages pile up in group chat after group chat, all from his neighbors, all stating the same lie. Group chat message: David Mitchell is a con artist. Do not do business with him. Protect your family from his schemes. David, VO. That's when I knew Karen was making her move, turning the community against me, framing me as a criminal, a con man. All this while I was the victim, the person trying to bring the fraud to light. I tried to respond. I tried to tell them the true story, but nobody was listening. Fear had already taken root. Fear and suspicion. That's all Karen needed to destroy me. It was a turning point. The moment I decided I was not going to back down, I was going to see justice done. The moment I began to piece together a case that would bring Karen down. I made phone call after phone call. I spoke to people who had a moral compass, people who recognized the danger we were all in if we let someone get away with something this awful. This is where I turned the tables. This is where I started collecting the proof I needed, the proof that Karen was not just a neighborhood busybody, but a criminal enterprise masquerading as a community leader. David is on the phone, dialing, ringing. Michael, Chief Building Inspector. David, I've gone through the files. We have a big problem here. None, I repeat, none of these houses have permits. This is not a simple oversight. This is a felony offense. We're looking at massive fraud, David. This kind of violation crosses the boundary from a civil dispute into a criminal conspiracy. We're going to need all the proof we can gather. We're going to need your help, because I think we can bring a strong case against Karen. David, VO. That phone call made something clear. I was not the only person who saw the danger in Karen's crimes. Michael, a man whose conscience would not let him rest, was on my side. The war was slowly closing in on Karen, and I was not going to let it break down. I was going to make sure justice was done, not just for me, but for every family that fell victim to her fraud. Sarah Kim, real estate attorney. Wire fraud, racketeering. We're looking at a minimum sentence of up to 20 years in federal prison if we can prove all of this in court. David, this is big. This is much bigger than just a civil dispute. This is a conspiracy. This is a crime that crosses state lines, involves multiple financial transactions, forged documents, and a systematic intent to deceive and harm. The penalties for this kind of offense are severe. We have a strong case. We just need more proof. We need something that shows intent and knowledge. We need something that ties directly back to Karen. We need a confession, a paper trail, or something we can put in front of a jury. David, VO. That's when I decided to reach out to someone I hadn't yet turned to, someone I hoped might break their silence. The person I turned to was none other than Karen's own husband, Robert Morrison, a man wrestling with his conscience, a man stranded in a moral mess of his wife's crimes. Coffee shop, day meeting, corner booth. David sips his black coffee quietly. His hands tremble just a bit as he waits. The side door opens, and a nervous Robert slips in, glances around, then seats himself across from David. Robert Morrison, whispering, "I have proof. I have everything you need. My wife's a criminal. I can't let this continue. I know what's right. I'm going to do the right thing, but you have to keep me safe." The moment I had been waiting for, the moment the community would see the truth, the moment Karen would answer for her crimes. The showdown was upon us, the showdown that would determine the future of Sunset Hills and the justice we all deserved. Community center, packed crowd, news cameras. The seats are filled. Neighbors whisper quietly to each other. Reporters from the local news stations are setting up their cameras. The atmosphere is thick with nervous energy, a mixture of suspicion, resentment, and disbelief. Everyone is wondering, is David a monster, or is Karen the one who's been deceiving them all this time? Karen, podium. This man you see before you, David Mitchell, he wants to destroy your homes, destroy your community, all for his own profit. He is a greedy man who cannot appreciate what we have built together. She gestures toward children playing near the community center's playground, parents smiling, families that Karen says David is threatening to destroy. Her voice trembles just a bit, adding an aura of victimhood, a mask designed to tug at the community's heartstrings. David V.O. It was a dramatic performance, a well-rehearsed show designed to make me the monster, while the real monster was the person putting up the houses without permits, without following the law, without a conscience. I knew I had a limited window of opportunity to break through her lies. So I stepped forward. I interrupted her carefully cultivated moment. David, standing.